What's up, Jabril?
Muhammad, what's good?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good, man. I'm glad we could bring some joy to the world. I don't know about you, but lately I feel like people have just been down.
Yes, and we're here to bring and uplift your spirits, and let you guys know that everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna be great.
I think the best way to do this is not only with a smile because of sunnah, but I think it's just a lot of comedy.
Yes, laughter makes the world go round.
Yes, and I believe we have one of the funniest people with us today.
But is she funny or is it what she create funny? Because I think there's a difference between her and what she creates. I think there's a difference.
We'll figure that out, but I believe it's both.
I thought she could be a comedian. We're going to find that out today. We have a very special guest today, guys. We're very excited. Thank you for joining us today. But before we can reveal who the guest is,
before we do it, we got to go ahead and kick this show off, my brother.
Oh, we on fire today, baby.
Let's get it.
You already know. Give me the countdown, baby.
3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? This is Jabril Salam
and Muhammad Hassan,
and you're listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Like we had mentioned earlier, we have the funniest individual on the internet right now with the hottest web comic series, figuratively and literally. Her handle is Yes, I'm Hot in This. So we have Huda Fahmy with us today. Assalamu alaikum, sister. How you doing?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I was nodding at figuratively and literally, and I was like, yes, I am both.
Look, he must have had that planned for like a couple weeks because that was good. Actually, that was good, bro.
That was spur of the moment, baby. Superior man. You ain't no bro.
No, I get a lot of people who are like, did you mean to do that? And I'm like, yes. Is that hard? Yes, I meant both literal and figurative. I'm very confident and I'm very sweaty, so.
So we have been following you for a good moment right now. We know that you have been dropping these webcomic series. I believe you post about once a day in 5 days in the beginning?
I used to. It's now kind of gone down to about 3 times a week. I used to do once a day. I used to do one every day for a long time when I first started. Yeah.
How long ago did you first start?
2017. I started in 2017 and around March of 2017 and it's been it kind of just exploded. It just kind of grew ahead of its own, and subhanallah, it was on purpose. Like in terms of growth, I read about like how to increase or how to grow your Instagram following or your social media following, and one of the things was like post every single day for like 6 months, and so I did, and that was. It was great because I had nothing else to do. I had just had a kid, and so he was sleeping all the time, and I had a lot of time to do art. It's very different now. So where he's like 4 and he's constantly demanding my attention, and I have other projects to work on, and so I don't get to create as much or as often, or to get to post as often as I'd like. But I try to maintain that 3 times a week schedule. So thank you for being followers. Were you guys following for that long? I don't know. There's so many inside jokes that I think only original followers would get. I don't know if you guys were there for the toaster. Were you guys there for the toaster?
I think I was there for the toaster.
You were
No. He's one of the. The toaster is one of the characters. No, I do remember the toaster.
Long time ago. I don't talk about him anymore. I don't draw him anymore. Maybe I should just introduce him one time, just to like mess with people who have no idea who he is. He was such a
throwback Thursday.
Random, super out there. Like, why would you include a toaster? Kind of thing, and it became this joke where he really had no meaning whatsoever, and everyone was trying to figure out what the deeper meaning was of this toaster, and I was just like, why don't you tell me what you think it is, and I'll tell you if you're right.
You're pulling a George Lucas. That's what you're doing. You're pulling a George Lucas on this. Wow.
But exactly. There was something that you said earlier that I thought was very interesting. You said that you exploded, and I was just going to ask you how, but you said you did the research and it was purposefully. Now with a lot of content creators coming up, young Muslim, they're trying to do something great, have their creative outlet, but they're like, brother, can you go ahead and post this for us for the sake of Allah? Can you post on your story? You feel me? And it's just like, yo, we don't even know you. So it's just like, I love how you did that.
Or like they've only got like 4 posts, or they've only done one thing, and it clearly is like you haven't tried anything else. And it's just, it comes off, it rubs me the wrong way when people do that, when people are just like, I don't want to be mean, but at the same time, it's like, I don't do that. And it really isn't like, I don't want to use my platform in that way.
Yeah.
I usually share what I love, like truly passionately love. And that's what I share. A lot of the times if I share somebody, it's not an advertisement at all. It's not paid. It's not a sponsorship. It's just because I love the account, or I love the product, or I love the service. And I just really want to talk about it. But commitment is a huge thing about like committing to your craft, creating, constantly, consistently, growing authentically, organically. It's not hard. It's just, it's not easy, excuse me. It's just takes a lot of time. It works. It works. Excuse me.
Nice. So can you kind of give us like the origin of how you came up with the idea for Yes, I'm Hot in This? You said it's been, around 3 years, just over 3 years when you started it, when you started posting from every day to now 3 times a day or 3 times a week. But how did that process start? How did you come up with the original idea? And how much different is that process now that you're super established to when you first started?
It's when I first decided to do this, I had the title already picked out. I was actually going to write a book of essays about what it was like so imagine like these comics, but each comic would be an essay. So I would just be talking about like my experiences as a Muslim hijabi living in America, born and raised in America. And so there was, I had just, I had my son, I was a teacher and I stopped working and I was like, I want to do something. And there was this open call for writers. And I thought, okay, this is my chance. I'd always wanted to be a writer. Let me do this. And Trump had just been elected. And I was like, there's so much misinformation out there, like so much more. Cause I grew up, through 9/11 and all of that after effect and the way it negatively impacted the Muslim community and the hate and the prejudice and the bias and all of this Islamophobia. And so I really, I felt it even more though with Trump. It was just, with social media, everything is louder, more immediate. You get videos, you get, it just feels worse. And so I was like, I gotta do my part. I gotta like, if, you want to be the change you want to see in the world. And so I decided to write a few essays and with the title, Yes, I'm Hot in This. And I sent it in submission to a few agents and they all rejected it. And they all came back like, nobody wants, memoirs are really hard to sell. And I didn't know this, but they're basically like, nobody knows who you are. You're like a nobody. Like, why would we want your memoir or your story? And nobody knows you. And so I was like, kind of like, challenge accepted. Fine. I'll show you. And so I started posting. I didn't let it stop me. And I just started posting notes like on Facebook or something. And then my sister was like, can you turn one of these stories into a comic for me? It was just like kind of off the cuff. She knew I loved comics. I've loved Sunday comics ever since I was like, it's kind of like how I learned how to speak English. Cause I grew up, my Arabic was my first language. And then we went to public school and I was like, so I kind of fell in love with comics. And so she was like, can you turn this into a comic? And it was like a light bulb just went off. I didn't know how to draw, no art experience, no drawing experience, no cartoon.
So you weren't doing comics before this. It was just kind of like.
Never have figured that.
Loved it. I just loved it. Yeah. And so the first comics, very rough, stick figures, pencil on paper, scanned it on my scanner that's right back here, uploaded it, and that was what I first posted. And then Jihad was like, if you're really serious about this, let me invest in your, whatever, and I'll get you, an Illustrator subscription, and I'll get you a tablet to draw on, and take some like workshop classes or whatever, find something to teach you how to use this stuff. And so slowly, little by little, it kind of flew up from there. And again, I did like the research, and because like I said, I didn't really have anything else to do but take care of my son. And in the very beginning, like after a few months, it kind of gets into a rhythm, and he's asleep a lot. And so I'm like, I need a purpose. I need to have more of a purpose. And so I just spent a lot of my time. I put all of my time into learning how to do this stuff because I really like. For me, the reason why, like, okay, that's the how. The why was just I needed to hear a voice that represented like Muslims like me. I was seeing so many kinds of Muslims on TV. It was just we were the hot trendy thing now, but it was always these two extremes. Either you were like a terrorist or the wife of a terrorist or brainwashed or like you needed to be liberated or something, or the other opposite extreme where she was going to the club all the time, or she just couldn't wait to take off her hijab, or she needed like the very second episode was just her taking off her hijab for whatever reason, exoticized, fetishized. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It it was these two extremes. I never saw somebody who was just like, yeah, I love my religion and I wear the hijab and I wear this abaya, and hey, I also like, you know, I'm proud of who I am, but I can also do all this other stuff. And I'm just, you know, I don't know. I wanted people to see that kind of middle ground, and nobody was doing it. And so I thought, why not? Why not just do it?
I want to go into the your purpose and representation, because I think that's very important. You mentioned that you were a new mother, and what I see usually with, you know, I can only talk about Muslims because usually I'm around, when they have a kid, they're like, hey, that's my life, right? Like, my purpose is this kid. There's nothing else around it. Even if the kid's sleeping, they'll just sit there. But I love how you like, you know what? Yeah, this is my duty. This is my job, but I want to do something that's even bigger than myself, my son, and my family. You know, and I think that's very important.
Because that was exactly my mentality. I always wanted to be a mom. That was my, like, I remember being 13 years old and I told my mom, I want to be a mom. That's the job I want. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And of course, for my parents were like, education is the most important thing. You have to go to school. You have to have, like, I guess they wanted me to make sure I had a backup plan or something in case I never got married or whatever, just, you know, to be able to take care of myself. But in the back of my head, I was like, no matter, like, I can't wait to be a mom. I'm going to be the best mom there is. So when I got married and I was a teacher, and then I became a mother, I taught for like 8 years, and then I became a mom, and I was so excited. And then 6 months in, I was like, this is it.
Wait, hold on. What?
So I'm just gonna watch him sleep all day?
This ain't a Gerber baby.
He's wonderful. I love him. But there are these moments where he's just sleeping for all the time. And let me tell you though, the first like 4 months were very hard. Very, very hard. We had a colicky baby. He was awake at all hours, you know, wasn't eating very well. It was very hard those first 4 months. Then once then he started to eat solids, and we sleep trained him, and he would go to sleep every night at 6 and be asleep for the rest of the day until about 7 or 8 the next morning. Yeah. So that was amazing. So I was like, okay, 6 o'clock, the sun is still out. And I was like, well, what do I do? Yeah. Who am I outside of motherhood now? And I didn't really want to go back to teaching. Mm-hmm. And so, so I found this. I was like, I have to do something else. I have to do something else where I know I have the time and I have the privilege and I have the ability to do it. And this is important to me, representation and being, you know, a voice. And that's one thing I'm really careful about. I don't want to say I'm like the voice. Don't put that on me. I'm a voice, and I want that voice to be out there. And so, alhamdulillah, I had the time and the privilege to do that.
But what's really cool about the whole origin of how Yes, I'm Hot in This came to be was also the fact that you had a self-realization moment, like you had that what's my purpose moment. And once you realize, hey, these things are coming into alignment, this is what my purpose is, you got full backing from your husband to not just say, hey, go and do it, but I'm going to invest in you.
Action.
What was your mentality like? Were you expecting that? Was that something that was just like out of the blue? But how was it for you to get that backing?
It's very on brand for him. He's such a huge motivator, and he inspires me just by being. Like, he is so, mashallah. He's just an amazing guy. And, having somebody who's 100% in my corner, I've never had that. And to have that unconditionally, like, even when we're angry at each other, to have somebody who's still going to constantly, he's like, that's separate. I am still like always going to be in your corner. And that's just an amazing feeling, alhamdulillah. And it was just, but that's something that we do for each other, and we support each other in that way. And it really did encourage me. And a lot of, like, I was 26 when I got married, and I thought I was confident in who I was then, and I thought I loved myself then, but he has, like, put in me this love for myself, this valuing of myself, in a way that I never thought that I could. I didn't know I could grow as much as a person, and he helped me really, really see that. Alhamdulillah. I'm so grateful to have him. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, man. That's awesome, because you always need somebody in that corner that can, not only believe in you but can support you. Jabril and I aren't married, but we support each other, right? He's my support system, I'm his support system. We better each other, and then which is needed, because like you said, this stuff is hard. There's days where you just want to give up, and you can't. Hey, I don't feel like doing this. It's like, no, at least get something done today. Just one thing, even if something small, at least get the story started. Like, just do something.
It's because you're creating, and so like you're exerting, like everything inside of you is coming out, and so it leaves you really kind of empty at sometimes and just really tired. And to have somebody that doesn't, I've said this before, he reads my comments for me, he checks my DMs for me a lot of times, because I can't always be on, and I can't always do that. And so I'm really glad that you guys have each other for that as well, because sometimes you need to tag team. You just need to be like, I need a break.
I need a break.
No, that is an interesting point, and I think that's a privilege that we do have, that we are a duo, because we know other podcasters who went out on their own. Like there's, hey, I'm gonna start a podcast, I'm gonna do this, and very quickly, like after we became friends and started to understand them, we started to understand, they do all this on their own, the editing, the ideas, and I'm like, at least I have someone to bounce the ideas off of, or we can help each other. Like if I'm weak in this point, he's like, hey, well, that's cool. You balance, but that, I think that really shows how important having a strong partner is. Oh, so okay, cool. So the process of your comic books has been amazing. Seeing them go from hearing how it started with the stick figures to where it is now. How was the learning curve? How long did it take you to get down the art for your comic book to where it is, I guess, around the level that it is now? How long was that process?
So I like of drawing every single day. It took about a year to see a very, very visible change. I mean, I changed my style very quickly on. I incorporated color, I would study other artists and other cartoonists and to try to figure out, okay, how do I recreate this? I started taking, I started taking reference shots of poses that I couldn't quite find replicated. I needed to figure out how to draw this post. So I would be like, Jed, I need you to take a picture of me. And it'd be like the weirdest post. So it grew and it developed, and I studied different techniques. And by saying studied, I literally would just Google stuff online, how do I do this? And how do I do this with an illustrator? And there's free workshops on YouTube. Yeah. And so I can do this. I can figure this out. So really within a year, you could see this very drastic change. And then, the book the first book that I illustrated was Yes, I'm Hot in This, and please don't mind, I do know my own stuff, but it's drawn in a style that's different than what I draw now. And so if you looked at my most recent book, That Can Be Arranged, it's also drawn in a little bit of a different, it's the illustration has kind of evolved. And then I'm working on a third book right now, and that art is also different than what the other two kind of look like. So I feel like every day is just, I'm just, I'm trying to get past, I'm trying to move on. At the same time, I'm very limited to this type of art. It's cartoonish. I'm not don't ask me to draw some anatomically correct person, or do an oil painting, or, I have some creative, genes or something, but I can't draw really past the cartoony faces.
But that's what makes your art the coolest, though, is because I know exactly what your fingerprint is. I know exactly what your footprint is within the comic world. As soon as I see it, I was like, oh, that's cool. As soon as I see it.
Exactly. I'll just embrace that. I know my limitations, and I can do that. And that's something that I'm happy with. I'm not I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel less than as an artist. I'm this is what I can do. And if you want a children's book, it will look like this. Please don't expect more. If I had the energy and the time to put into learning how to do that, I could probably try and study and spend another few years learning how to do this, but I just don't have the time. I'm going to just embrace this style and do my best to kind of make it the best.
But what's really cool about the style, and how for anybody that reads the comic books will know, is that you don't just give us fluff with the content. The content is actually really good, necessary. Sometimes it's a little bit heavy, a little bit dark, but the lightness of the way that you draw makes it approachable. So these topics you bring in, you're like, whoa, but this is cool. I can read, you know what I'm saying? It makes it really easy to get on with your work. So I think that's a big hats off to. I don't know if you did it purposely or what.
Well, that was kind of what encouraged me to start drawing, was that I think it was either my sister or my husband who was like, it was my sister. She was like, your art could be like the worst as long as your message and your point is good. People will like. She's like, look, there are books out there that are literally just stick figures, and she pointed to something. They're like, this guy's selling books at Barnes and Noble, and they're just stick figures. She's like, you can do that. And because your message and your voice and your jokes are funny enough. And so that was like a big, she's right. If I do make the story or the punchline strong enough, who cares what the art looks like? And so then I wanted to go past that, and I'd be like, no, I now want to make sure that I can do well throughout. So, by the way, not all my jokes are funny.
Put that out there.
I think we talked about this. Is I've drawn stuff, and I would post it. Like, I have a Patreon, and I would post it to Patreon the night before, and it would do terribly. It was completely bomb, and I would be like, I'm not posting that on the next day. I'm not posting that to Instagram. And I think that just comes with, like, as you grow, you become a little bit more self-conscious about what you draw. That's one of the things that I hate, is that I do kind of think twice now about what I post and hope that, are people going to get this? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Usually I don't care and I'll post it anyway, but there have been like one or two where I'm like, I'm not posting that. So, I don't need the hassle. I don't need the comments. I don't need the confusion. I don't want to. Do you want to hear what it was that I posted recently that did not get made? It was for Eid al-Adha, and I did a spoof off of the poster for Silence of the Lambs. And Silence of the Lambs, Eid al-Adha edition, and it just did horribly on Patreon, and I was like, oh, okay. I won't post this. Oh, man.
I have just one question. You talked a lot about investing the time into your comics and the drawings. How much time have you invested into the actual, like, the comedy? Do you study comedy to kind of learn how to build up and then deliver a punchline? And also the characterization, because you have prominent characters that feature throughout. Like we were talking about the toaster and things that feature in. Like, do you have to study that stuff, or is that something you just come up with and it just came natural?
I didn't study it, but I think it was just, again, years of loving comic books, just years of it. I love sitcoms, and I loved books like Calvin and Hobbes or The Far Side, especially The Far Side. The Far Side is like, this man, Gary Larson, who's the artist, can tell a joke that'll have me like laughing days later, just remembering it in the car, and I'll cry tears of laughter in just one panel. Like, to be able to tell a joke in one panel, one box, one square is so masterful. And so I just was obsessed with, was just reading it as growing up. And I used to have like desk calendars. And I think just having that was probably like a kind of, study, but not really. But I've always enjoyed humor and laughter and just making people laugh, and always seeing and I think it was really a defense mechanism just growing up. Just, we moved around a lot, and I wanted to, a way to make friends is to make them laugh. And so I wanted to be the funny one. And, so I think that was just something that, that just, developed as I grew older. I've always seen humor as one way to just kind of like get people to see your side, or get people to really soften up towards your point of view.
I mean, especially with people
being Muslim, because you definitely want people to see your point of view in a light that is not what it's normally, lit. So, yeah.
I mean, it's especially with people that, you don't know, right? Because now when you consume content, or when you just meet somebody in the street, just in the regular human beings, we always have our walls up, right? You don't know anybody, so you always have your wall up. Nobody's going to answer. But the way you bring that wall down is through comedy, being nice, being relatable, and that sounds like you did all of it. One thing that you said earlier that I want to dive into is you put the time into the craft. And right now, because it's COVID, a lot of kids have time, right? Young college kids, young Muslims, and they're like, every time I feel like somebody wants to do something, they feel like they need to go get a formal education, right? So you weren't like, okay, I want to go study this. You said, okay, I'm not going to go to the arts. You're like, yo, I have YouTube. There's this free webinars, there's these workshops. Jabril and I even find ourselves like, yo, we got to go to this event. We got to do this. It doesn't matter it may be expensive, but we have to put in that self-education to get that value back. But a lot of people are missing that piece, right? They just don't want to put in the work. And it also sounds like you were obsessed with it too. I mean, you still sound like you still get that hunger from a few years back and ever since you started, and I love it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of, I'll be honest, it's kind of dying. I've talked about it kind of dying a little bit down. I feel like I really want to highlight other people and their work now. It's kind of been like, you know, like you said, a little bit over 3 years, and I'm not done. I'm not near done, but I definitely want to hear other people's voices and other people. I want to see other people take advantage of the time that they have. But it is, and I'm not naive to this, I did have privilege. Like I had the privilege to do this. I have, alhamdulillah, like my husband who works, and so I can stay at home and I have access to a computer and access to internet and access to all these resources, alhamdulillah. So I know that I'm privileged and that I was very, very blessed to have the opportunity to do this. And I guess if anything, if young people are listening, and anything that they take away is don't try to reinvent. Like there are free resources out there, definitely to try and don't give up. Like commit to it. If this is what you want to do, and this is what you see yourself doing, like find a way to commit to doing it. And may Allah make it easy and open the doors for you, because I truly feel like along with the privilege, it was also just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing that He opened these doors, because I had a publisher approach me and I had my agent approach me. I didn't have to go out, like where I started off pitching myself in this memoir book and people rejecting me. After I had done this for about a year, I had people coming to me now. I didn't have to go out and pitch myself. So it was, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really did open those doors. So I'm very, very, very privileged, very blessed, alhamdulillah.
So now I wanted to dive into more your character, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to dive into the character because, you know, tell us a little bit about your story is a lot. I feel like it's a lot different than the character, because the character isn't really a stay-at-home mom. It's
but he does. I've never put that down in the canon. I've never explained her job really. I think she kind of. I don't think I've ever said it, and I don't know what she is, except she just kind of lives and exists in this realm of just walking down the street and being tapped on the shoulder by people. That's her job. Is to just walk down the street and be tapped on the shoulder by Susans and Karens. And then but Jihad is very much in my husband. He's very much a character. Huda's character, I always refer to her as a third person, because I do try to separate her from me. A lot of her experiences are based on my experiences, and a lot of them are based on stories that I pulled from the news, Twitter, friends' experiences, my sister's experiences. And so, it's why I had her in a blue hijab, because at the time I didn't own a single blue hijab, and I was like, this is perfect. I'll just put her in this color. I just wanted to, it's just an effort to separate myself from her. But she's kind of a super confident, uber confident girl and woman. And, I feel like she's got, they say hindsight is 20/20. She's got people suffer from elevator wit, where they only think of a comeback hours later, but she's got that comeback right there, right that second. She's full of sass, and in real life, I maybe 1 out of 10 instances I'll actually be able to say what I want to say. But so she's kind of like that person that I wish I could be, and I hope that I could be like her. And then there's Jihad's character, who I make him so goofy in the comics, because he's goofy in real life, but he's so smart. He's the smartest guy I know, mashallah, and just such an amazing guy that I wanted to create kind of almost a little bit of an opposite to who he is in real life. And it's not fully, he's still smart in the comic, but he's just a goof.
No, but I really like the Huda's character and what she does, because it's very refreshing. It's a lot opposite of what people think Muslim women do. I mean, you go and you visit your therapist, right? And then you talk about how your father, you talk about how your mother on there, and you was like, yo, I learned how to work on my 401k and actually work on a car, you know what I mean? And do different things. So that's not the typical, like you said, extreme of what people think a Muslim woman does.
I don't want to say that we're just like you, because we're not. We are different, but we have some a lot of similarities and a lot of things that we do definitely go through, that you go through, that people don't generally be like, or think of placing Muslims in that same scenario of changing their oil and being taught by their dad how to change their oil and being like, oh, like, come on. And, and it's just, and I think just doing that really, helps, I hope, helps Muslims and non-Muslims see that, hey, we can exist in this realm outside of these two extremes that we constantly see. Yeah. And I'll tell you something, when I first started this was very niche. I really only meant for this to grow in like the Muslim community. It was meant for Muslims and not specifically hijabis. I mean, I called it Yes, I'm Hot in This because I really only thought, oh, this was about girls who wear the hijab and they're the only ones that are going to get this. That's what I thought. I really did think that. and I thought if nobody gets it, like if they're non-Muslim and they don't get it, it's not for you. It's not for you. And that's okay. Not everything has to be for you. This is my space. This is what my comic is about. And then subhanAllah, just like, a few months, I realized that the idea of feeling like the outsider or feeling like you don't fit in and not caring or being sassy about it or wishing you could be sassy about it is something that is experienced by so many people from so many different faiths, and wanting to just embrace their differences and be accepted for their differences. And it became like, it totally blew my mind, opened it up to being like, wow, this could really apply to so many different people. That, I guess seeing Huda changing her oil, being annoyed by it is like really resonating.
I actually do,
with a lot of people.
As young single Muslim man, I do want to ask you a question about that. You showed that you were out there and you learned how to change your own oil and everything like that. But in society, in our community, we're taught like, hey, whatever the woman needs, you go ahead and take care of it, right? If the woman needs like a tire, anything's flat, you run over there and you take care of it. But in reality,
you mean like as a man, like as a Muslim man, like you're taught to take care of it? As a Muslim man,
we're taught like whatever she needs, you go out there and you take care of it. You don't want her. You want to make everything easy for her.
She never has to get dirty or lift the finger.
Exactly. But we're realizing that that's not what women really want.
I mean, hold on. Give her the choice. I mean, I can do this. I'll tell you, I very quickly forgot how to change my own oil because I'm like, I'm just going to pay somebody to do this. I'm not going to do this. So I'm like, whatever. And so, but like, if my husband wants to take my car to go change my oil, I personally, speaking as, for myself, yeah, please go do it. If you see me in a fight, I would like to know that you're going to come in and help stop the fight or help me win the fight. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's, it's just, I'm just saying, give the lady a choice. Like, don't generalize and say, oh, all women don't like to be, don't like this anymore. Some women don't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some women will be like, get away from me. This is so misogynistic. Don't help me. And that's fine. That's the way they want to live their lives. Another one will be like, no, I would like somebody to open the door for me, or I would like, whatever. And that's how they want to live their lives. So I'm just saying, be careful of these generalizations, because some women do and some women don't.
Yeah. And everyone dance to their own beat, dance to their own tune. Mm-hmm.
I think as long as you give the woman a choice, and don't make these assumptions, I think you'll be safe. If you just, I'm gonna train my son, or train him. I'm gonna hopefully raise him to always want to help. And I think that just having that, and obviously respecting consent and all of that is very important. But always wanting to help, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And whether she's a woman or a man.
So where do you find your inspiration to produce comics? Because to produce a comic every day means that you have to have material to draw from.
That's work.
So where do you get that material? Where do you how do you not just burn out after 5?
I work Saturdays and Sundays now because alhamdulillah, because my husband is able to give me the weekend to get my work done, and I basically spend a couple hours just brainstorming. I will go to Twitter. I will look at the news. I will look at what's trending. I will sit and just kind of go back in my mind at like things that happened to me as a kid, depending on what I want to draw about. So for example, I want to draw about my character Noor, who's a relatively new character to the series. And she's Huda's sister, and she is this single Muslim woman who moved out of her mom's house and has a job. And so she's got like all these new adventures and stuff. So if I want to think about, okay, I'll call up Noor and we'll just have a conversation. And if she says something funny to me, I'll just write it down, and it'll I'll bounce things off. And like, for example, the comic I drew today was based off a conversation I had with my mother. I was talking to her on the phone about coffee, and she was like, ugh, and she got me this coffee, and I hate this coffee, and why did I pretend to like this coffee? And I'm like, this is a comic. It wasn't even like a really funny comic. It was just a comic. It's like I said, I'm not always funny, or I'm not always like the best. Sometimes the comics are really deep and political, and I'll usually get that from whatever's trending. Like there's something on the news that'll really like hit me, and it's raw, and it feels like I really need to say something about this, and here's how. And sometimes it's just some goofy, seeing Huda, a Muslim woman, in a situation where, oh, what's the dynamic between her and her mother, or what's, the dynamic between her and her husband, and it's just a goofy kind of random throwaway comic. So, but yeah, but I call people, I call friends, and sometimes the comic, I feel like, just writes itself. There was, or I'll be with Jihad and we'll have a conversation. One of my favorite comics that I've recently drawn was where Jihad, I asked him if he wanted fish for dinner. I just randomly was like, I can't believe you don't like fish.
I remember that.
It was such a random thought because I love fish so much and he hates it. And it was just one of those moments where you're just sitting next to each other. Nobody said a word in 10 minutes. And all of a sudden I'm just like, why do you not like fish? He's like, what are you saying? So then I was just like, then we just kind of just talked out this whole scenario where I'm like, I'm going to make you fish. You just haven't had it right. And then I was like, he's like, yeah, and I'm still not going to eat it. And I was, well, then I'll flip the table. And it was just, this image, and it wrote itself, and it was really funny. But yeah, that's
one
where,
of my favorite
inspiration comes. Put in the time.
I was going to say, one of my favorite comics, like, you are a Muslim woman that are talking about your life. You really don't focus on Muslim content, right? Because you talk about your neighbor Susan, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's a white lady, and then she was it was Eid, right? So, and then she said, "Hey, I helped you with the decorations," and it said "Die Mubarak." So I said Eid Mubarak.
Die happy, die happy.
It said die happy. That's what it was. It was die happy. So I was like, wow, and I love that because like you're expanding like your audience, right? And you're kind of influencing Islam in a different way and showing the reality like, hey, look, we're all one. People are curious about it, and a lot of people really don't understand, and they want to get to know it without you going around there and trying to convert everybody. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like we really lack that empathy, that connection, whatever you want to call it. But I like how you bridge that gap. I think that is really, really cool thing.
I feel like on that point, my comics provide, or I hope that they provide, more of a springboard, because I don't like the pressure that it's my responsibility to teach somebody about my religion.
I like that.
In the detail that they require, or the detail that they ask. Like it gives these little morsels of information or sparks of curiosity to people who aren't Muslim, and I hope that they'll go ahead and research that on their own. Call your local masjid, make a Muslim friend, and you know what I mean, and don't expect like these people who it's not my job. I didn't explain what Eid was. Like, you don't know what Eid is? Go look up what Eid is. Like it's like I said, content is not going to always be for you, and you might not get it, and that's okay. And I don't mean to say that in like a mean way where I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to be mean about it, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not here to give you like a religious talk. I'm not here to give you a lecture. There are scholars and people who know about it, and people always ask me almost like fatwa type questions, and I'm like, that's not my job. Like, you can't be every Muslim woman and just because I'm, and expect me to be like an expert on my deen, and you know what I mean? Like, I have ups and downs. I'm learning. I'm a student of knowledge, but I'm not there where I can teach you you know what I mean? Like, it's so that pressure is completely different. It's like you don't look at a Christian guy who walked out of church and ask him like all of these things about scripture. Like, he doesn't know.
It's funny because I feel like as Muslims, you don't see a lot of other people of faith get those questions. Like, I've never seen a Jewish person or a Christian person get questioned the same way that we get questioned. Yeah. And I think that's almost like a compliment to us as Muslims in our religion, because it's almost looked at as if, hey, if you're a Muslim, I know you guys are really devoted and you guys are really smart about your religion. Most Muslims I know are on their stuff. And so it's almost like, in one way, like you said before, I'm just one story of billions. Yeah. But I'm almost flattered that you're asking me these questions. Like, we get questions all the time. People ask us questions like, most common is music haram, and I'm like, well, I listen to music almost every day, so it's like the questions come in, and you're almost like, why are you asking me? But at the same time, it's almost like this is such a compliment to. It must mean that we're doing something right. Mm-hmm. That's what I look at. We must be doing something right if you're going to approach me to answer your questions of your spiritual life.
I totally agree. And there are days where I totally feel like that, and I feel, alhamdulillah, proud to know that I in some way I do represent Islam, because how can you not? You people who can see this and they can see you, and they automatically assume that you're this like representative. On some days I'm like, yeah, I'd love to answer your questions, and on other days I'm like, please don't put me on this pedestal. Like I don't even know. Like, I sin too. I don't know what to tell you, and who knows? Maybe what I tell you is wrong, and you might go out and do this thing and it's wrong, and then you know what I mean? Like, it's just so much pressure. I'm just like, I'm a regular person too.
I mean, just going into pressure, I remember just doing the podcast, and then my brother-in-law came up to me, was like, hey Muhammad, I know you're doing all this stuff, I think you should go and study in Egypt at Azhar. I was like, for what? He said, well, you're over here giving us, this Islamic knowledge and everything. I was like, dude, this is just based off of my life and my experience. I'm not over here like you said, there's scholars, people out here that are certified. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting pressure on myself, because there one time I was like, yeah, I gotta study. I gotta make sure everything I'm saying is right. I mean, I still want to give an accurate information.
You do. You don't want to say something wrong.
Exactly. So, but then it got to the point where I was like, yo, it's not a khutbah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta get on here, and I want people to feel better about themselves after they listen to a podcast or try to relate to me and let them know, like, hey, this is a journey. We tell people, welcome to the Young and Muslim family. This is a journey. Yeah. And I feel like the same thing with your comic series. Like, when we follow the Instagram page, like, those 3 days when it drops, we see the journey, we see the evolution.
Man, I totally admire the Muslims who do go to study, who do go to learn. And for me, as I've gotten older, specifically just talking about myself personally, it's just become such a much more smaller personal experience between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, yeah, I'm still learning. Yeah, I'm still taking classes online, but it's not something I really feel comfortable talking about. And it's not something, I don't know why. I just, like, I'll see other people who are influencers, Muslim influencers, and there's one in particular, and I don't want to say her name because I don't want to embarrass her, but she's amazing. And she does her influencing, but at the same time, she also posts reminders, like Islamic reminders, and she does such a great job, and it's so seamless, and it's such a great reminder to her, like, hundreds of thousands of followers. And I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. And there's something in me that maybe one day I will be able to do it, but I feel like, oh man, I need to get right first, like inside. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I struggle too. And that's another thing is people see, yes, I'm on this, and they see me, and I don't want them to put me on a pedestal of knowledge or anything. It's like, that's a very personal thing. That I'm experiencing and that I'm going through. So it's just another thing that kind of unexpected, that came with the number of followers.
I respect that though, because, something that we've learned and we're still learning is that as we learn certain things about the religion or about ourselves and how we are trying to merge our deen and I say regular life, but like our deen is a regular life.
It's our life. I know, yeah.
But you get what I'm saying, like how we try to merge secular life and Islam, our Islamic life together. You have these realizations. Like, I was making prayer the other day, and I was like, why is it so hard for me to concentrate? And then I said Allahu Akbar, and I was like, hold up. So Allahu Akbar means God is greater, right? Which we've known this since like birth, right? But then I was like, well, if we're saying this in Fajr, for example, 11 times in one prayer, it must be really important, right? So that means that God is greater than any thought or distraction going on at that one particular time. So I was like, well, dang, that's a pretty big realization. All right, well, this helped me concentrate. And so I'm 28 years old. I've been Muslim my entire life. But that one moment, I was like, I got to share this with everybody. And it's because I'm learning this. And if that shocked me after being Muslim my whole life, how could that have affected someone that's really, really struggling with prayer or struggling with just life in general, So everything that you create or that we put out or somebody hears or sees it, it's like it's always an opportunity for someone to better themselves in their deen, and for us to be like, I had no clue that would really help you, Like it's a two-way street type thing.
That's such a good point. See, I have to figure out how to do that. I have to get over this. I don't know what it is. I got to get over it because I feel like that's such a good just having that kind of like realize, it's such a spark of one joy to have that realization and knowing Allah's power, and that again, he's like the one who ultimately has your back. And to share that with your followers and to have hope, like who you don't even know, you might have reached one person, even one person, to have that same impact that it had on you. I need, like, I wish that's something that I aspire, that inshallah, I hope that I can do, is just share something as simple, like simple, but not simple. I don't know. I feel like I'm babbling, but
you're doing it. I mean, you're already doing it. You're already doing it.
I don't know. Maybe it's something where you're just like so hard on yourself. I don't think I am. I don't think I am enough.
But I feel you're doing it. You said it before, where you're starting to, I guess, transition a little bit in how you use your platform, because maybe that's not your position, right? That's not your job. Your best job is to facilitate for those people. Because you talk about how now you're starting to share your platform and introduce, like you did the takeover with the Village Auntie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so sick, because like you guys couldn't be further apart in like the things that you discuss.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see you open your platform up to her, and I was like, this is dope.
Yeah.
Right?
First of all, I love her. I love her so much. And I feel like that was one of the things that I wanted people on my platform to see, is just Muslim women existing and doing their thing and being Muslim women. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, my page is a story of a Muslim woman, and hey, guess what? There are so many of us, and hey, look, there's this one, and she's amazing. And so I want to do that, and I want to do more of that, and I hope to expand on that, inshallah. I hope at least once a month to have a different Muslim woman kind of come and just, she's a creator, and just kind of talk about what she does and open up people's kind of perceptions of Muslim women, and also to hopefully help these Muslim women grow more and see more opportunities, because it's just, you're right. I think that is it. I think I am just kind of, something's missing, and I feel like maybe if I can't provide it, like, let me give us opportunity to other people who can provide it. So hopefully, inshallah, but I also hope I can do what you're doing as well, inshallah.
You know who you remind me of with what you're doing, and this is someone who's huge, so your eyes about to bulge out of your head. What you're doing reminds me of Dave Chappelle.
What are you doing right now?
Yeah, see, I told you, her eyes just bulged. So
I love him. But what is he doing?
So if you follow Dave Chappelle and you watch what he's doing, he's actually putting on a lot of young Muslim comedians at the moment, and he's using his platform, taking them on tour, bringing them out to his ranch, basically putting them in the room, and we don't see that, especially in the Muslim community. We don't see a lot of creators putting on other creators. We don't see a lot of, it always seems like we're in competition with one another, rather than, hey, like, we'll give you our platform, come on and let's have some fun with it. Like, I want you guys to benefit from this. And so I see what you're doing as the same as that thing. Like, you're bringing people onto your platform, sharing their stories. Like, that's a big deal. And I think that has to be seen and recognized. Oh,
I hope more so the people that I'm highlighting, I hope they're definitely seen and recognized. It costs $0 to do this. That's just like, it takes zero effort to give somebody else a boost, because alhamdulillah, again, I'm saying I have this platform now, and I would love to see more people like take advantage of it and do great things. Thank you for comparing me to Chappelle. Awesome. I heard, I had a friend who's down there, and I saw that. So I did know he was doing, it was like a summer workshop or camp or something, I think, for comedians. So that was cool. Cool. I didn't know what it was exactly. So thanks for
So we were talking about the perspective of Muslim women, and there's so many out there that do so many different things. I want to jump into Noor's character, right? Yeah. Because she is a single Muslim woman that's out there living life, working, doing her thing, and we usually don't hear that side. Can you dive into her character a little bit and tell us what she's all about?
So, like I said, that she's relatively new, and she kind of came from this idea that I felt like I was tired of hearing a little bit of hers, or I felt like maybe we needed to hear somebody else's perspective, because I knew that I had a lot of followers who were not married or not in a relationship, and so they couldn't really relate very much to these comics that I had about Huda and her husband. And so Noor, who is actually my sister, I have, how many do I have? I have like 8 brothers and sisters. So she's one of them. And she is, she's wonderful. She's hilarious. If ever I was going to take a trip, I would take her with me, because she does everything. Like right now she's taking up golf, which I really can't wait to like tie in. to the comic somehow. But she lives her life. She puts herself out there and lets things happen to her, which I kind of shy away from. And so I love watching her just let things happen to her. She joined a golf group of in like a 7 a.m. golfing group, and they're like all these old women because they're the only ones that would go to this time. And
that makes sense.
Dude, I can't remember what it was. Something after like her job is on Friday, like it finishes early and she gets up going early to this. I can't remember. But anyway, I don't remember the details. Anyway, so she's like with these old women, and they're each woman is a character, and so she'll just tell me these different women's characters, and they're not Muslim or anything. And so, and then she joined like a knitting group. Again, really early in the morning, kind of like at Panera, or just old people just kind of knitting. And I'm like, what? She taught herself Mandarin. Like, she just lets stuff happen to her, and she goes out there and she taught herself sign language, American Sign Language, and she joined like a group where she goes to different masajid and she like does sign language. And she's just like, like when I was her age, well, actually, no, when I was her age, I was married. She's 29, and but she was doing all this stuff like all her life. So when I was her age, I was always just like, nope, it's just like go to school, get married, and have a kid, right? And I didn't want to like finish. I didn't want to get a master's. I didn't want to continue because I thought, what if that would scare away my future husband? Or, it was always like tied to whoever it was. I don't want to tie myself down because maybe he wants to move. And I was so scared of letting things happen to me because of this imaginary guy that maybe never was going to come. But she doesn't do that. She's like, why am I waiting? I'm just going to go do this stuff. And so she's just amazing. She's just done all this amazing stuff. And, so I decided to just base this character. What better character to base it around than her? And I just have to have like one conversation with her, and it's like 5 comics because she's just so funny. So I'm just, and then of course a Muslim woman in the workplace. That dynamic is so interesting, and so many things happen. For example, a comic is coming up where she's going to be introduced to the one other Muslim who just got hired, and they'll be like, "Oh, you must know each other already," and she'll be like, "What do you think?"
That's kind of like being the only black people in the office. That sounds exactly the same.
Do you think we all know each other? And then
like y'all related, right?
Then they'll go like, and then I already have like this whole storyline kind of where it kind of transcended her real life. It's just kind of this crazy thing now that now the entire office is going to try to get them together just because they're the only 2 Muslims they know. And so they're like, did the Muslemanis put you up to this? What are you doing? So it's just a great, it's fun for me to kind of put myself in that situation and seeing her life. And like I said, I think it's a point of view that, a lot of Muslims who are not married, would find entertaining or interesting to see. And, making wudu in the workplace, in the office, have you been caught? Like, what happened? What do you do? Where do you pray? How have you convinced your whatever to go to Jama'ah? Like all these things that just pop up in the workplace and you don't know how to answer. So I'm excited to see where her character goes.
You're giving people education, because a lot of this stuff I had to learn by, trial by fire. Like
what?
Getting Juma off was a no-brainer, but making wudu in the public restroom, if someone comes in, you're like,
and the sink is just dry.
What do you do?
And you're just like, I do shower at home. Don't worry.
What a day! Yeah, I don't know, but it's gonna be fun to see. And I hope people actually all of the newer comics are the ones that have been doing the best, and that just kind of reinforces what I feel like is just people want to see something different, and I think it's just time to evolve and grow with that. So
it's so much light. Like Noor brings so much light out the darkness. When that darkness is that young woman, right? Specifically, I have a sister, so I can speak about it. Their goals, like you said, is to look as pretty as they can, go to school, and wait for that man that may never come.
Yeah,
right?
For some women,
and
that's definitely
the problem is that they don't learn about themselves. They don't live life, and that cripples us as a community, as an ummah, because we need as much of us to go out there and learn and do their thing. So Noor brings that refreshing perspective, because it's like, you can go out there, do everything that you gotta do, still be a boss, and still get married. You know what I mean? So how important is it for single young Muslim males females to go out there and live their own life. I was talking to a relationship counselor and just therapist. She said, before you get married, that is the time where you need to be the most selfish. Because after you get married, that's when you have to be selfless. You get your family, you get your husband. But I think it's backwards. I don't know if it's parents, if it's community, like, oh, when I get married and I find that my knight in shining armor, he's gonna come and save me, take me out of the house, we're gonna travel, like that's gonna happen, but like you still don't have that time to figure out yourself, right? And figure out who you are. How important is that? And is that one of the biggest reasons why you kind of put Noor into that comic and kind of give her that role?
I think, minus the whole I just needed like a change, it became a little bit about that to some extent. The idea that it was just, it's so taboo for a Muslim woman to move out of her parents' house, and for having Noor to do it and just be like, you know what, it's okay. Like I still haven't explored it fully, but from my own experience, I do think like it is important for, it might not necessarily take moving out of the house to learn about yourself, but making it a priority that you know who you are outside of your family dynamic, so that you know who you will be. And that's not just some discovery that you're making when you get married, because that could be detrimental and to the relationship. I'm saying this as a non-expert. I'm saying this as somebody, so please take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I'm just speaking about what was my personal experience, and my story with my husband is that I did move out of my parents' house for a year when I went to law school, and it was very helpful, and it ended up, strengthening the bond that I had with my family, but also helped me understand who I was outside of that dynamic. So I think there's a huge benefit in doing that. And, I think it's something that I hope that parents don't see as, she just, for some reason, the word independence scares people. Like, oh, she's being independent, and
we did a full-blown episode about that, right? Because I just got my new, apartment, alhamdulillah, and Jabril's been telling me, you gotta move out. I was like, I'll move out when I'm married. He's like, no, you gotta move out. I'm 28 years old as a Muslim male, and I just moved out, and it's legitimately night and day, right? Like I'm in here, I don't have influence from nobody. I figure out what I like, what I don't like, cook, clean, all that stuff. I gotta take care of the house, do it the way that I want it. Mama and Baba's not here, and that really changes your mindset.
Like Islamic, like you have to remind yourself to pray. Like you have to make sure that you're, on top of yourself. You're watching yourself. Like, you're making sure that this is something, I'm committed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's good to have a support system in Islam. It's good to have that support system, your brothers and sisters to wake you up and to remind you to pray and to do all that. But I definitely see, again, a benefit, and it strengthens you, I think, because you want to hold on to it, I think, and you don't want that your deen or your religion to escape, because you feel like, oh man, there's nobody here to remind me. I need to like make sure that I hold on.
You'll figure out very quickly how important your deen is to you when you live on your own, and when you're the only one responsible for your deen. And I feel like for a lot of us, we don't invest enough within our lives as far as spiritually, and as far as just like experiential, like you're saying, you invest a lot of time into learning the comics, and just like we invested a lot of time into learning this craft as well. And you see that anything worth exploring, you have to invest. Whether maybe you want to learn how to travel, you got to do a lot of research, you got to do a lot of stuff before you even get on the plane. And I think what we're seeing now is that as the generation, I guess within our generation, maybe the one a little bit younger than us, they're starting to understand, like, if I want to do these things, I got to put in a little bit of time and put in the work and put that effort for it. And so now with our spiritual lives, it's the same exact thing. Like, you can't just rely on your mom and your dad and say, oh, wake me up for Fajr. Like, nah, like download the prayer app, like set your alarms, and as-salatu kanu min an-nawm. Like, you gotta, is it more important? You feel me? Like, are you going to wake up? Like, what you about to do?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. So I think there's positives and negatives for sure. And I think being aware of that, living on your own and being aware of that, and what are the dangers of living on your own and how to counteract that, specifically like with your spirituality and how to hopefully make sure that you have that support system in place. So that I think that's what like a lot of, for my parents, that's what they were really worried about is, what is she going to be like? Is she going to start going out with guys, or is she going to start, doing things that she shouldn't be doing? And who are her friends now? And I think just being able to let go is a terrifying thing for parents. Speaking as a parent, I don't even want to think about when that time comes. So I know it's going to have to come, and I know it's going to have to happen, but I don't want to think about it. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
But that's when you have that full faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because at the end of the day, like we talk about, you can't even be attached. He says, like, even kids will be an issue for you, right? Your wealth, your children, all that stuff is like, at the end of the day, those are my kids. I'm going to take care of them. So I believe if you raise them the right way, then they'll be okay. But at the same time, I don't have any kids. I'm not a mother, so I think it's a big difference.
You don't even have a plant in here, bro. Your flowers are fake in here. Like, you literally just take care of yourself. How dare you even mention kids?
Get a beta fish. They last forever.
Beta fish, I got it. Okay.
Got it.
So what do you feel is next in this evolution? How do you feel Yes, I'm Hot in This is going to evolve? What are your wishes for it to evolve?
With kind of sharing my platform, hopefully I'm working on a young adult graphic novel, which is the next step. I hopefully will. I mean, the dream is for me is to see this as an animated series, or some kind of series or a movie or something that's been like end game for me. But then I thought, like, okay, well, if I reach that, then what is next? And I don't know. I'm getting tired. I'm just tired all the time. That could be the quarantine talking. Having my son with me all the time is exhausting. You're getting too close. Jihad and I, I don't think we've ever been like this close together for this long. Familiarity, all that, whatever. But so it's just like, ask me again when I think things kind of settled down. It's just, I'm just tired. I'm like, I feel like I could stop soon. I could probably stop. But I won't. But I probably could if I wanted to. Going
back to compare to Dave Chappelle, though, I was watching a video on comedians, and how they, we don't expect them to come out with stuff every day or every month or every year even. Like, we didn't see Dave Chappelle for a good 7-8 years. He was gone off the map. But why he did that was because he needed the mental space and mental clarity. And I feel like when you start getting to that point of you start feeling tired or you're feeling unmotivated, sometimes you have to back away a little bit to try and, I guess, recalibrate a little bit. So how, with it being quarantine and you still, you probably have one of the most, if not the most consistent platform that we even know of. You post consistently. So
quality. Yeah,
and it's quality. It's good work consistently. So what do you do to, I guess, recalibrate on a regular basis?
I haven't had a chance to recalibrate in a long time. That is a question where I can't give you. I don't have any wise gem to drop because I am burning out. I'm burning out. I feel like Chappelle, he had a butt ton of money and he could have taken those, 7-8 years and he's still making, royalties and stuff. And he can take that break and he can afford to take that break. And I feel like I haven't hit it big yet. I haven't hit it big, even as the platform, but you guys don't know about my book sales. You don't know how good or bad they're doing. You don't, you don't know if, so I feel like I'm creating this content and people expect it. They just expect fresh content or they will unfollow in droves. And right now, my platform is a huge mitigator in getting deals. People see, she's got 300 something thousand followers. That's great. So if I start losing followers because I'm not creating, then there goes opportunities. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who provides opportunities. But of course, if I don't put in the effort, you got to tie your camel and do the work. So I haven't had a break. I don't feel like I have recalibrated. I'm exhausted.
Well, I want to talk more about that side because it's very interesting, the business side in converting, because you mentioned you were so passionate about the creative side and everything. Is that something that you had to learn? I mean, even with us working the podcast, we looked at each other like, yo, bro, we gotta make some money.
Pocket's kind of dry.
And these episodes are good and people really benefiting, but this is getting kind of hard.
Yeah, let's say my first book, I made my first book deal without an agent. I didn't have an agent. I didn't know I needed one. I didn't think I needed one. I was like, I'll keep all the money, But now that I have an agent, I definitely wish I had her during that first book deal, because that first book deal was terrible. It was an awful offer. They did little to nothing marketing it. And so it didn't see as like the sales that I would have expected for, like, there aren't any other books like this on the market right now.
I haven't seen it, no.
And so I was like, I feel like this should have done better, but maybe that's just me like tooting my own horn and it really isn't that great kind of thing. All this stuff puts doubts in your mind. So an agent came and so I started to learn a little bit more about the business, a little bit more about my worth and what it is, what it actually is. And so alhamdulillah, the second and third book deals were much better. Mashallah, much better. Good. And I had to alhamdulillah. But then I had to go back and realize that that whole first paycheck I literally had to pay to taxes, the entire paycheck, because I had to learn about that. Like it was because we're in a kind of a high tax bracket, and so I had to pay as a entrepreneur, a sole proprietor. The word. You've got to pay taxes quarterly, and you have to pay those taxes based on what you made last year if you don't know what your year is going to be. So I was like, wait a second. So that means that's on my first year of paying as a sole proprietor, I guess is the word. I had to basically pay both, then I had to save that money and basically pay off taxes. So the whole first year went completely to taxes.
Oh, Uncle Sam would have been short.
It's awful. It was awful. I couldn't believe it. I was so mad. And so that all my money went to, went to taxes. And then the second book deal, I have to figure out, okay, well, they're getting a percentage. This is getting a percentage. I have to pay for my supplies and stuff like that. I'm like my illustrator, whatever. It's, and then again, saving for taxes. And then, it was just, I had to learn all of that stuff. Freaking Uncle Sam. But yeah, so that was interesting. But then it's when I realized, that, hey, maybe I could do this full time, and maybe to one day eventually kind of stop posting on Instagram and start posting somewhere else where I would actually get paid to post. So
that's a similar thing with us, where I guess as creators, we're seeing right now, we're in a time where social media is a free platform. It's a free marketing tool, but we use it to get brand deals where if we took ownership of our audience, we wouldn't need to rely on so much outside money, because we'll be able to bring money in from our own audience anyways. That's what we're talking about, is something that creators, more specifically Muslim creators, are just starting to understand and catch on to. But I think the bigger realm of social media creators are all hitting this kind of patch where they're like, we're creating a lot of stuff, we're using a lot of energy. It takes a lot of dedication to do this, and the amount of time and energy we put into it for marketing doesn't match with what we're actually getting out of it. Because if a Sprite doesn't come along, or if a big deal doesn't come along out of this, what do we do? So I'm very interested to see, how you progress in this and how we do it. And I would love to just keep sharing this information, because we're all kind of working together in an informal way, right? And I think there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of stuff to be gained as creators. Well,
I will tell you this: if you don't have a Patreon, you should start one.
How's that helped you as far as your art?
It's helped because, number one, it's definitely given me confidence and support, and motivation, knowing that there's this group of people who will pay me just to support me. They just want to support me, and they just want to show that they think that what I'm doing is important, and they want me to do more of it. And so just coming from a mental health kind of perspective, anytime I feel down, I realize, oh no, I'm I have this group of people who do support me, who do think that I'm doing a good job, who do, and it's, I think it's just coming from that perspective, knowing that they're there, it really, really helps. And it just, like you said, it's a lot of energy to create. And so at some point it becomes an issue of valuing yourself and valuing your time and valuing the work that you put in. And a lot of times that the only way to translate that is into dollars, because that's just, I guess, capitalism, and that's how you get raised. But you see your work and you want to know that it's worth something, and that people just expect it for free, and you're like, you know what, I'm worth more than that, and it's time that people really do see me for more than just free art. So anytime, so that's my go-to whenever I get like a person who says, this is a repost. And I'm like, you're welcome for the free. Yeah. Get away. What do you?
But you know what? That's really interesting you said, because what we've modeled this after, and we're cool to say this to the audience, is that we model how we do the podcast from the independent music industry. We watch independent music artists, how they use social media, how they use audio platforms and market their stuff. And when I talk to other musicians, they're really like, oh, so you guys look at this as just a marketing tool. Like, we use this as our end all be all. And I'm like, that doesn't really make sense for the creator, because you're giving away all your stuff for free, whereas you could give somebody a 15-second clip and then they have to buy the rest. Or just like you said with Patreon, like, you could literally take, how many comments do you think you have, if you had to estimate, like, total that you've put out?
That I put out? I mean, God, I know I have, let me see. Actually, it'll tell me how many posts. So I have 883 posts. Not all are comics, but I have well over maybe 2,000 comics that I have drawn that have made it.
That's crazy. So imagine if you took the beginning half of those and just started reposting all of them and be like, yeah, if you want new comics, you got to pay for them. People will start paying you. And as creators, I feel like we have to really take that power back, because we have got so used to just giving
so much
that we don't understand how to properly take an ask. You know what I'm saying? Like, take an ask from ourselves and be like, listen, like, you guys love my stuff, show me.
Here's what I'm worth.
But you gotta love your stuff, I think, too. And I think that's like a problem that I have. Like, if you don't feel confident enough, because the fear is, ooh, what if nobody buys it? It's like, no, you need to really love your stuff and know that it's worth it. Like, people are going to pay for this. So it's that confidence and valuing yourself is really important, and it's hard to get there. It is a hard place to get. It sounds easy. It's a hard place to get to that. Like, to get to the point where you feel like you value yourself enough that other people will value you too, with their money, like showing you that they value you. Like, and I learned this. My agent she's been just amazing at showing me this. For example, some company wanted to ask for a commission, and she's like, you should not be doing one comic. It was just one comic. She's like, you should not be doing comic commissions for less than $2,000. And I'm like, they are not going to pay $2,000 per freaking comic, Kathleen. And she's like, you need to try it. Like, what's the worst they're going to say? No. Exactly. And I was like, yeah. Like, yeah, they're going to say no. And then what if I don't get the comic? And she's like, she'll get on me. She's like, you need to, like, value yourself more. You're worth it. You're da-da-da-da. And so I think just being a minority and being visibly Muslim and constantly feeling like I'm never going to get this opportunity again and I need to settle, and she's just like, no. And so I did it and I got it. And I was like, oh, they're crazy. I was like, they're crazy. I'm going to make sure this is the best comic I've ever drawn in my life. And she's like, all right, now we know they got money. And I was like, okay. But I think it was just, really, really believing in yourself, believing in your work, or having somebody like Kathleen.
Get yourself a Kathleen.
But also at the other end of that coin, you had something to show for it, right? I think other people now are making that ask too early, right? They have they just started Instagram, they have like 4 or 5 posts, 10, like, all right, I need to get paid on this. Oh, you got to pay me for a feature. It's like, yo, nobody knows who you are. You haven't done the work. You haven't been around.
But at the same time,
have a portfolio. Yeah, show that you've done this work. Show what you're capable of doing for sure. Just have that background and then be able to back it up and stuff. It's just like I had that, but I didn't believe in it, kind of thing. Like I didn't think it was worth.
Yeah. But it's almost twofold though, because now we live in a society where things are so instantaneous that you can get somebody that makes one thing and it's possible for them to get a pop, but what I think that's so few and far between that people are expecting that without actually having to put in the work. You get the extremes of like the one hit wonders that they skyrocket, but then you get the people who, like Colonel Sanders was 66 before KFC, right? And so we don't. There's like no middle ground. There isn't that like, hey, I worked and then I got some that popped, or you know, like I got something little by little, and we tend to not look at that story. Everybody wants to be the hare and not the tortoise so much, because the hare is a lot cooler than the tortoise. But what I think from what you're doing, what we're doing, and what we're seeing a lot more people start to realize is that the slow approach with maybe a few spurts here and there is what really gets you to, you know, being able to come out with books and have a great platform and keep building up.
I agree. I think it's also what my agent told me. She's like, I once signed a person, and she said she had 6 years before they actually, like, you know, their work actually exploded and was taken on. So she kind of gave me that at the beginning. She's like, don't feel discouraged if you don't see that, like, immediate, you know, success or that immediate growth or that burst. You know, she's like, it is a gradual thing. It is, like you said, like little bursts here and there, and then it's like, but you have to put in that time. You got to put in that commitment. So I think having that expectation going in and not expecting this, like, to be the hare, like, you know, you're going to have to put in the work and be committed. I think that's a good reminder for people who are starting out as creators and want to, like, see success come from it.
And we got to start with our own. We got to support our own, you know, and a lot of people listening right now, these are young Muslims, and they talk about, we want to help the Ummah, we want to uplift the Ummah. Well, start right here, right? And we know that you have a few books in hand, right? 3 different books. You have your Patreon. You're transitioning. So people probably think, like, how can I support Huda? Yeah. You know, how can I support Yes, I'm Hot in This?
Yeah, you can totally support. I do have a Patreon, and it's patreon.com/YesI'mHotInThis. There's my website, YesI'mHotInThis.com. You can there's merch. I don't really market the merch that much, but it's there. I do it mainly just because it's fun. Which drives Jihad crazy, because he's like, "Yeah, you need a plan." I don't have a plan, so so there's that, and then I have 2 books. Yes, I'm Hot in This: The Hilarious Truth About Life in a Hijab, and my newest book called That Can Be Arranged: A Muslim Love Story, which I think is hilarious and everyone should read. And I am working on a 3rd book, but I don't think I can reveal the title yet. It's a good one though, and nice. I'll tell you after we start. After you stop recording, I'll tell you what it is. But it's a young adult, so please be on the lookout for that.
Sorry.
Please be on the lookout. 3rd book coming soon, inshallah. So yeah, and then there's other few projects going in, but hopefully we'll hear back from those soon. Hopefully, inshallah.
Inshallah, we're definitely making dua for you.
Absolutely.
Huda, thank you for joining us on the podcast. So we tell this to the people that we've been following for a long time. You were probably one of the very first people. But when we first started on this podcast journey, we made a list of like 70 influencers that we wanted to get, and you were like in the top 10.
The Z list, dude.
Yeah, you were on the Z list. Like, you were like the A list, like the pinnacle. Hey. You were up there. We got you. The podcast is over. Forget this. We're done. We done made it. Mo, Mamba out.
Did I exceed expectations? Like, I never know what people go in when they want to, like, talk to me. I'm like, I don't know what.
No, this has been great. This has been great.
You were yourself, and then I love how you talked about you saying, like,
the podcast isn't over yet.
Yeah, no, but still, we're still going. But we're letting people know that, like, you were authentic. You were real. You were telling people, like, hey, this is hard work. Hey, I'm tired. Hey, this is how much work I put into this. But guess what? I'm still here. I'm transitioning. I love it. I'm sharing my platform. Yeah, it's a struggle, but guess what? What isn't a struggle? You know, so
it's so important. Representation, sharing your voice, passing the mic, you know, grabbing the mic if it's not going to be passed to you. It's so important, and that's why I think I'll just, even if I have you probably like got me at like a really low point maybe today. I'm just really tired, so I'm just like, maybe I'm saying it negative, but I love what I do. I'm excited about what I do. I want to share it with other people, but it's definitely, I think it's still important for me to be around. So
yes, it may long continue with it.
I mean. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, make sure you guys all follow Huda at Yes, I'm Hot in This Instagram and Twitter. She is on there. Make sure you support her. Link in her bio, and do that now. But yes. Bro.
Yes, Muhammad.
Thanks about that time.
Thank you, guys.
Exactly right. Absolutely. We're about to wrap this up. But Muhammad, if people want to find us, and they want to see us and listen to us, where can they listen across the beautiful internet?
You're welcome, my brother. You guys can listen to us on all the major listening platforms out there: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Pandora. We're out there, alhamdulillah. You can also watch us on YouTube. Yes. Subscribe, put on that bell notification. That way you know when the episode drops, it'll be the first one on there. The Young and Muslim Podcast.
Make sure you like, subscribe, and as he said, hit the bell notification.
Do the dang thing. But if they want to shoot us a direct message, bro, how can they do that?
Muhammad, if these lovely people want to shoot us a direct message, which we always reply to, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Young, the letter N Muslim. That's YOUNG, the letter N Muslim, Young and Muslim, the Young and Muslim Podcast. Search us, find us, Google us. We're there. We're here. We're ready to meet you guys and talk and mingle. Yeah.
But now?
Yeah. All right. So how long have we been on? We have been on for an hour and 20-something minutes.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. It's been a fire episode.
Yes, it has.
Because, yes, I'm hot in this. So Huda, thank you again.
Thank you.
But until next time, I'm Jibril Salam.
And Muhammad Hassan.
And we leave with the greens of peace.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Peace out, y'all.
Oh, hold on. And this is... Hold on, we gotta do that. No, we gotta do that again. Alright. So for the last 20-something minutes, you have been listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast. I'm Jibril Salam.
And Muhammad Hassan.
And this is...
Huda Fahmy. Yes, I'm hot in this.
Hey. No, it works.
We out.
And we leave with the greens of peace.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Peace out.
Peace.